We're good.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Budget Night. Pursuant to Executive Order number 20-05 issued by the Governor of the State of Rhode Island, this meeting will be conducted by electronic communication only. Members of the public wishing to access this meeting may do so at https://youtu.be/UTX4H9ZHPCA. I'd like to call this meeting to order and stand for the pledge. Pledge of allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here we are at the unfinished business, and it's just one item, and it's discussion of the FY 2022 Superintendent Recommended Budget. Mr. Baxter?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This evening, we have a couple of introductory comments, and then we'd like to review the individual non-staffing items of the budget. And a couple of the, before I turn it over to Ms. Danbrook, the couple of points I just wanted to mention were first, regarding the ESSER 3 program, this morning we were notified that our allocation from RIDE, instead of the $17 million estimated, will be about $12 million in actual. So that will have no effect on our intent for the budget presented. We still would intend to allocate $7 million next year, with about $1.5 million for learning loss. But it will affect our spending in future years. And again, that whole structural deficit discussion. The second item of clarification, because we were asked questions, was regarding our local fund, what we call our local funding, as opposed to our local appropriation. I just wanted to say that where we were asked, why does it appear that our local funding is decreasing from 139 million to about 131 million to about 132 million to about 131 million. And that's essentially because in fiscal 21, our current year, we had $1.4 million in surplus roll forward. So in addition to our local appropriation, we had about 1.4 million in addition to spend this year. And as we've discussed, we have no intention of having a deficit, a surplus at the end of this year. We're projecting a deficit. So there'll be that $1.5 million. The local appropriation, the actual tax revenue that is appropriated to the city, remains constant at $129,967,938, both fiscal 21 and fiscal 20 projection. So with that said, I'd like to turn it over, if it's okay with you, to Assistant Superintendent Ms. Danbrook.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the school committee. I just wanted to give you a little background information on the thoughtful process that we used to put together our budget initiatives. The academic team, Dr. Taylor, Dr. Conley, Ms. Amelot, and myself, we worked together very closely to prioritize initiatives. So our worlds intertwine in many different ways. So we wanted to make sure when we're budgeting, we're not budgeting the same thing twice, which has happened many times in the past. So there are 4 areas that we focused on to support student achievement. They are instruction, curriculum, assessment, and social emotional supports. So improving student achievement will always be a top priority and is the center of our decision-making process. When preparing our budget, the academic team met and identified priorities for each department. All of the priorities we identified support the district's initiative to improve student achievement. So first of all, budgeting funds for engaging professional learning opportunities will help teachers and administrators have the necessary knowledge and skills to continually improve instruction and student achievement. So you'll see professional development. We try to, you'll see it in our general funds, you'll see it in grant funds. So we try to use grant funds as much as possible. Having high quality curriculum and resources that are aligned to rigorous college and career ready standards are key factors that will help improve student achievement as well. We are well on our way to meet RISE requirements to have a green rated curriculum in reading, math, and science by 2023. We also identified technology platforms that will support student learning. Having purposeful assessments that are aligned to the curriculum is also essential to promote student achievement. Utilizing diagnostic, formative, and summative assessments provide teachers and administrators with information that's important to support student learning. And finally, social emotional supports are more important now than ever. When a teacher makes connections with students, they feel welcomed into the classroom, and students in this environment are most likely to take risk and persevere through tasks. It is also important to create a community in the classroom which students respect and collaborate with one another. So we're recognizing that going through the pandemic, when we go back to school in the fall, we need a lot of those supports in place. So I know Wendy Amelot is with us right now, and she wants to expand on some of these topics.
Thank you. I just want to say over the last year, we were able to put professional learning funds into my budget, and the teacher leaders and teachers have been working with my department to plan those professional learning. And we can really see that just while the legislation says green curriculum for 2023, that is purchasing the curriculum is only step one. It often to really be able to implement that takes many years of professional learning to really understand those shifts in curriculum and why the materials are laid out. And also, this year we are also facing we have to make sure that we have funds for our elementary to also have green ELA curriculum, and that's to come. And so that's one of our next big challenges as a district, to make sure we have funding for that. But we are working very hard to make sure that our students have the materials they need, but our teachers have not only just the materials, but the conversations to be able to implement them well in the classroom.
So I think the most important thing is that the center of our decision making is to promote student achievement.
Yes, Mr. Testa.
Madam Chair, I'm not sure if Mr. Testa's mic is on. We can't hear him very well.
Oh, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Adams.
Ms. Amelot and Ms. Denberg, thank you. I think what you've done is kind of explained where we need to be. But I would like for you to tell us where we actually are right now in terms of red and green curriculum. And just for the public's edification, green curriculum means it's a curriculum that's approved by whatever the nonpartisan body that approves curriculum for standards and whatnot, right? So it's green if it's good, red if it's not good, yellow if it's, I guess, in the middle. So where are we now?
So for our math, kindergarten through next year will have kindergarten through algebra 2 will be fully green curriculum, but professional learning still needs to be there. And that purchase though is not a one-time purchase. Those are consumables. And this is also really important because often teachers were asked to make photocopies or not use consumables. And so those are in my budget, but those are not a one-time purchase. So we are green for math, and 6 through 12 with our CLSD literacy grant. It was a competitive grant. We have $1 million, and we will be green for our 6 through 12 next year with professional learning. And our next large hurdle that we talked about is that we would need green curriculum in our elementary schools. And that purchase will include one-time purchases, but also consumables. And after having done some preliminary efforts of just pricing, that's going to be about a $3 million purchase for our district over several years to have those materials. And science is 2025. And so right now we are on track. GEMSNet is working to ensure that our teachers are ready to teach with green materials. There's currently materials aren't being rated. And many materials have not been rated. And so GEMSNet partnership is actively making sure our teachers are aware of the next generation science standards, because that is what the curriculum would be aligned to. So for elementary, we're moving in that right direction.
So I think what you're saying, Ms. Amelot, is we still have quite a bit of work left to do, and that, you know, curriculum isn't like buying a truck, right? You buy the truck, you use the truck, you replace the truck. You have to buy the curriculum, you have to invest in the professional development, call it professional development, call it training, call it whatever you want. Okay, but that's as critical as having the curriculum in place. And it's also important, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, because if we have curriculums that are not aligned to the standards, when the kids are being tested, whether you like or don't like testing, that's a separate question. But that's what they're going to be measured on, right? So if we don't have curriculum aligned to that, you essentially set them up to fail. Am I correct? Or am I?
No, you are correct. Many of our materials, the reason why they're red is they are not on grade level material for our students. And so they're not matching the rigor that our students need to be exposed to and taught with.
And as far as how we pay for the curriculum, I know some of it's grant funded from the grant that we won. Some of it is operating budget, of course. Professional development is also in the same boat. Would some of these be funded with ESSER funds as well, do you know?
So ESSER can't supplant any funding. So at this point in time, when we're exploring, it does not look as if the materials themselves, that would be a supplant. And so that can't happen.
All right, so it's essentially going to be, if there's no grant for it, it comes out of the operating budget, right?
Correct.
All right. And I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Baxter, or is it back to you?
Yep. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Yep. I think that's it for opening comments, and we'll follow your lead if you want to resume on the line by line.
Right.
report.
Are you putting this up on the?
Oh, yep. Thank you very much.
We just noticed on page 12 of the.
The descriptions are one row off. I just noticed that
Okay,
the
'cause we just-
descriptions are one row. I don't know
Okay,
what happened. I just
wanted
noticed
to
it.
let you know, because he just brought it to my attention, because I've been looking at the large printout. So if we're gonna kind of use this one,
Yep. So
I just wanted to let you know it's off by a line.
but I appreciate that. Yep. I just noticed it as we're going through here. The descriptions are one row below. And I apologize for that, and we'll revise the document. Yeah.
So is everybody on page 12?
Is that large enough, or should I, can we read that?
It looks good on our end.
Okay, thank you.
So what we have done in the past couple of years is just go through everything line by line. And the only problem is with this document up, I can't see on this screen if my colleagues want to speak. Can we just kind of adjust that somehow?
Could we just say Madam Chair if we wanted to?
You can adjust your view.
They're gonna adjust the view so I
Well,
can
no,
see.
well, you can adjust the entire, you can adjust your own view too, where it's just the speaker who is, oh no, grid view.
Because I don't need to see the document, really. We got our expert at it. I have full confidence in him. Can't do it. Right,
Do you want me to?
okay, so I'm gonna ask Ms. Bacchus and Mr. Adams to speak out and just say that you would like to speak, because I cannot see you. Just be aware, I cannot see anyone but this document, and it looks like Mr. Baxter. So we'll just proceed. So we can just go along here, and when someone has a question, or do you want to do it page by page? And administrative support, therapists, interpreters, payment for services, volunteers. I think we kind of get this stuff. Evaluations, mentoring, tutoring services, transition/student assistance.
Excuse me, Madam Chair, I would submit that these costs are relatively fixed costs that
Right.
are independent of,
Right,
say,
that's
student
why,
enrollment or programming, like the concussion or the dental.
well, that's
screening
why
or-
I said maybe this page, does anyone have any questions on it? Because this is, like Mr. Baxter said, this is standard fixed things. Does anyone have any questions? Let's just go to page 13 then.
Mhm. So similar here, this is, Madam Chair, page 13 is
Mhm.
our 54,000 series.
Right.
According to the UCOA code, these purchase property services. So these are all services that we buy, would purchase outside contractors to either provide utilities or help fix the buildings or, our internet, all of those sorts of those things. Again, relatively, these are all relatively fixed and independent of student enrollment.
I do have a question on the renting land and buildings. Is that where we have storage places?
Some of that out of the $16,000, some of that, about half of that is the storage containers for around the district. And we were actively working on reducing those and cleaning out space and getting rid of those. And the other major component of that is renting athletic facilities sometimes,
Right, which we've had to do this year
Yep,
a lot because of the pool.
yes,
Right, and we do that for gymnastics, I believe, too.
yes.
Anybody have any questions on page 13? Okay, let's move to page 14.
Okay, Madam Chair, page 14, this is where the majority of our non-staffing budget is. Out of the $33 million of non-staffing, about $24 million or just a little under that resides here. So 23,300,000 resides here. And those expenses are primarily the $10 million expense for transportation contractor. And I will say that includes, we're projecting a $500,000 savings due to, we described as streamlining or cutting what we're calling premier door-to-door services. So we plan on making some changes to the transportation next year to eliminate 7 buses. We're hoping at least 7 buses, which would be about a $500,000 savings. The total budget is, exclusive of that would be about 56 buses.
Yes, Dr. Thornton.
Mr. Baxter, I know sometimes folks have questions. Can you explain briefly the error in omissions insurance?
Yeah, so thank you very much. So again, that's first of all, let me say that's a fixed cost. It's an expense, it's insurance that the district pays. And it allows us to protect ourselves against, let's say, certain liabilities that if we were, I'm trying to say this simply, accused of making us a mistake or something like that, in somewhere, one of our administrators or even one of our professional staff members, that item protects us and allows us to mitigate that financial risk.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I have a question.
Yes, Mr. Testa.
Mr. Baxter, I just want to go back to transportation again, because I think the people around these tables know what is built into this, but just, we have to go backwards before we can understand this. So at the beginning of the year, when we cut the buses from 63. Last year, when all was normal, we had 63 buses. We reduced it to 29.
Correct.
Then we voted to add back 14, but we could never operationalize those 14,
Correct.
right? Okay. So in your budget now, we're going back to almost to where we were before COVID, right?
Correct.
So we're looking to run maybe around 50 some odd buses, right?
Correct.
So we're gonna
Yeah.
cast a much wider net than we have been able to do, and what this committee had decided to do in the wake of, in the face of COVID, what we had to do was increase distances and whatnot. So the public needs to know that transportation should change dramatically for
Yes.
next year.
Correct. So, yes. So I
Hence the $10 million.
Yep, I see where you're going. That's a fair statement. And so let me speak to the public listening. So we are planning and we're anticipating that the COVID restrictions will be relaxed before September and we will have full capacity on the buses. And number two, or B, we're assuming that the school committee will adopt revised or relaxed, pre-COVID walking distances. And therefore, again, to your point, we would cast a broader net and provide transportation for more students, especially, where we had pushed them out to 2 miles and beyond.
Right. And so when you talk about premier service, it's an interesting way to put it, but I get it. You don't necessarily have to pick the student up at their door, at the door of their house, and then go to the next door, and then the next door, and then the next door.
Correct.
So I understand that. I would guess that that's probably not the most common practice in municipal school busing.
That is correct. And not neither municipal or even non-public. The typical expectation is more of a depot stop where you have fewer larger stops, the safety in numbers, so to speak, there's efficiency in numbers. And then I will say again, if I may, for the public's sake, it doesn't seem like a lot to add those stops, but every stop does cost, let's say about 5 on average, to do the math easy, about 5 minutes. And so what happens is if I add 5 of those stops, that adds 25 minutes to the bus run, and I can't get to the kids to school on time. And so I need to add another bus. Each bus costs us about $72,000 a year. So it does add up rather fast. And it's, again, with our declining enrollment, it's not a service that we can continue to provide. Because the buses then look half empty and we get, and for good reason, we get criticized for not fully utilizing the seats that we have.
I thought a bus was like more like 80,000. You said 72.
So 72 is our current cost this year.
Oh, this year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it'll be higher, yeah.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Adams.
Mr. Baxter, like obviously I know that this year on top of the cutting busing, we also did have trouble getting bus drivers. Do we foresee that being an issue as well? Or
again, I mean, nobody has a crystal ball, but again, with by September, we're expecting the COVID fear, let me say, the risk of contracting COVID to be greatly reduced with mass vaccinations and all of this stuff. So that we are anticipating that the drivers and the monitors who were reluctant to come back because of the risk of COVID, and it's completely understandable that they will be willing to come back. And also we're expecting that the federal programs that, provided enhanced, unemployment benefits will have been expired and folks will be willing to drive. So we're fully anticipating that we will have fully staffed, buses for next year.
thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I have a question on number 55810. So what is travel other for?
So that's essentially mileage for folks who are not teachers and are not students. So that's trying to think. It's only $800. I'm trying to think of what the. I tell you what. Let me look at it and I'll look. I'm trying to. There's like one example. We have one. I'll get that and I'll get back to you.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
So I'll look it up while we're fielding, while other folks are discussing. So I saw there was another question too.
I just have one, while you're multitasking, looking up that, I know folks often have questions on tuitions. We have 4 tuition lines here on this page. Could you just
Those are important.
talk about how do you budget that number? Is that an actual number? How do you get that number for each tuition line?
Yes, okay, that's a very good question. So we have for each school a grade by grade enrollment. So we know how many students are graduating from each school, if you will. And we, based on the enrollment trend at each school, we have a relatively good forecast of students who are entering. So again, if it's a high school, we can see that we have, say, 10 seniors at that high school, and they will be graduating. So we know that that number will come down by 10. And then we look at the other grades and we say, well, if the average has been, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whatever, we've got so many freshmen coming in. And then so we use that actual number, if you will, for each school to, and then again, the enrollment number, the tuition per each school is a fixed amount. We know what that's going to be. And so we have an actual number that we use to project
Yep.
the tuitions for
And
each
secondly,
school.
once again, for the audience, we have special education, right? We have charter, we have pathway.
Yes. Yeah, so yeah, we have, career and tech, pathways, the special ed, the charter schools. So there's a significant.
Could you just, for my edification, just tell me what, there's 4 line items there, 55, 610, 630, 640. So first one is other district within state, 3.3. Is that pathways?
Yes.
And then private sources?
There's a split there, but it's mainly special ed, yes.
And then 640 says education service.
That's mainly career tech.
Okay, and then charter is charter.
Yep. And then, Mr. Cornell, if I may, just to get back to you, the $805 is travel mileage for secretaries, the business clerks who go to other schools and provide training.
Okay, thank you for that information.
Thank you. So, recruiting, internships, that sort of thing. So travel within schools.
Any other questions on page 14?
Yes, Mr. Baxter, so our total intuitions, if I add that quickly in my head, is that approaching $12 million?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Mhm.
Thank you.
So, and again, if I may, that number is fixed. So because in the past, we have cut that, and I would call that an artificial cut, because even if we decide not to pay the bill, if you will, it just comes off of our state aid. RIDE works with the state and they just deduct it from us anyway. So that's not that's not a reasonable place to reduce that number. We are going to end up spending that $12 million one way or the other. And then the second point is, again, just to reiterate, between the tuitions and the transportation, that's over $20 million. That's about 2/3 just that of our total non-staffing
That's the
budget.
The green stripe, right?
The green strip, yeah.
And the other thing is, I mean, the legislation that the superintendent helped draft with respect to pathways, grandfathers in, those kids were there already, and wouldn't come into effect, assuming it passed, until 2022. So this number's not going anywhere for a couple of years.
That's
right?
correct.
That-
It'd be
Right.
2022, next year's applications, right?
Right, and I would also caution that I don't think that's a panacea by any stretch, because I think the funding might get fixed, which is fine. But if the parent still wants to send their student out because there's a program there, they'll program hop. If they went to the other district because the kid wanted to be on a football team, okay, and I'm not saying that most people do that, but I think we're heads in the sand if you think no one does that. And because I want to be in this pathway, if the legislation passes and it says, well, you have a comparable program, so we don't have to approve it, you may find another program to put your child in. But at the end of the day, those receiving districts need those students just as badly, so they will take them because they need to support their numbers as well. So I don't think all of a sudden pathways will all of a sudden be solved and cured, and very few kids are going from one district to another. I think that's with us for good or for ill.
Yes.
Thank you.
I do have a question while we're just talking about that. And I know this has been something we've been working on. Could those numbers drop? I know that we call the schools to make sure that they confirm they're in that program. Are people complying with that, other schools?
We
Are
actually,
we having an all right time getting that answer?
yeah, actually, with our two big districts that have our students, one complied the same day we asked them. The other actually, it turned into litigation. So that's hopefully going to be settled down, but we will get the information.
Okay, so the community should know that we do check up to make sure that they're in the program that they have signed up for, because once a kid goes for 1 year, they continue. You know, they could go to a different program and they stay in there and then the money stays there too. So I'm glad we're checking on that.
Mhm.
Any more questions on 14? Okay, on to 15. I do have a question already. On page 13, we have graduation rentals, and now we have supplies.
Yes, if I may anticipate, so rentals is just that, so we're paying to use certain things, right? It might be chairs, it might be equipment that we would give back. Graduation supplies are things like the consumables that we purchase, which would be like diplomas, and the other stuff that goes along with it that we purchase to
Yeah,
own.
because I think that number wasn't like calculated together, I think last night maybe. That's why it was just questionable.
Yeah, it shouldn't have changed since last night. It should be the
No,
same.
I think in the presentation, I don't think it was that much. I think it
Mr.
was a little
McCaffrey, I
less.
believe, is on the call. If
Hmm?
Mr.
The requisition for last evening was approximately $22,000. What you're seeing for the graduation supplies are at the building level for the high schools, like Mr. Baxter had said. That's a consolidated number from picking up from the high schools where we pay for diplomas, we pay for program booklets, we pay for decorations and things of that nature for the ceremonies for each school. And that's what those budgeted items are for. What we discussed last evening was the rental of the facility and the audio company that will be providing the audio, restrooms, providing the generator power, providing the teleprompters as well on each side of the stage.
Okay, thank you. I was just curious because I remember last night it wasn't as much as what I'm adding right now. So thank you for the clarification.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
So, why isn't there anything to budget for glass, paint, lumber or hardware or, plumbing, heating and heating supplies?
Very, very astute, Mr. Cornell. Two reasons, right? So we know that that's an area that's typically scrutinized, number one. Number two, so we're trying to minimize the expense that is in our local appropriation again. So we're trying to focus on, as Mrs. Danbrook mentioned, student achievement. Also, the ESSER funds, ESSER 3 is the way it's structured is for non-recurring, if I will, non-recurring, district improvements to improve the condition of the district pre, during, and post-COVID. And these qualify, and so we move these expenses out of the local budget and to the federal funded budget.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you for that information.
Good question, Mr. Cornell.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Dr. Thornton.
Rob, could you briefly just, for the audience, talk about how you get pricing for gasoline, natural gas, et cetera?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much. So on with gasoline, I'm sorry, first of all, for if I can take a step back. So energy, if we take a look at our non-staffing budget, energy in total accounts for our third largest segment, the first two being transportation and tuitions. The energy prices, we are either estimated based on pricing trends that we research or based on contracts that we have in our usage. We have a very solid usage history. So for instance, I'm just going in order, on natural gas, we have a contract, we know how much we pay per whatever is like megatherm, and so that's a relatively solid number. Gasoline and diesel, we know how many miles we drive, we know how much gasoline we use, and we work with the city because we purchase from the consolidated depot, and we have a rate, a projected rate, even though that rate can change. We use that as a budgeted rate, and then again, taking our anticipated usage, we extrapolate that out. So in each of those cases, it's not that there is some science behind it based on our actual history and where we believe the prices will be next year.
Thank you.
Mr. Baxter, if I may, I don't know what our actuals are for this year. I mean, we still had most of the buildings open, right? So
Yes.
energy usage this year may have dropped a little in the high schools because they were pretty much empty for a while, but
Well, even to that point, things like heating oil, natural gas, we still had to heat the buildings.
Right,
So they were not, there were not, let's say, district saving, rescuing savings from energy.
That's my point, because
Mhm.
whatever reduced usage we had is already built into the current budget. We already know that. But next year, assuming it's a normal year, we're going to go back to those trends anyway,
Mhm.
right? I do have one question on 56219 custodial supplies at 200,000. Those are in there. Why would those be in there and those wouldn't be part of ESER 3?
Oh, thank you. That's also a very good question. Our actual custodial supplies budget is about $500,000. The $300,000 is which is based on our usage this year, is in what I'll call sanitization rather than cleaning, or custodial. It's the sanitizing wipes, the sterilization, the hand sanitizer, all of that stuff. There's about $300,000 in COVID-related supplies budgeted for ESSER. And then the remaining $200,000 is our traditional custodial supplies.
Understood. Thank you.
Mr. Baxter,
Hello, Ms. Bacchus.
hello. Are we still paying the city 5 cents per gallon tax for gasoline?
Yes, we are. And I have brought it up. I will say, and I appreciate you mentioning that. I meet every other week with my counterpart at City Hall, Mr. Schaefer, and we've brought it up. But there's no intention to change that for next year, and so it's budgeted in. But yes, you are correct. It's a good point.
Wow. Thank you.
And I thank you for raising that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
Yeah, so Mr. Baxter, just to clarify, so when it says supplies and materials, is that for classroom supplies and materials?
So that 56101, the first line item on this page predominantly is instructional supplies and materials. So so if we looked at it, it's the most detailed category. What we're talking about is the stuff going to the schools. It may be paper. It may be paper for the office. It may be, pencils and, that sort of thing for the office. But predominantly it's, as it's mentioned there, consumable materials for the foundations program, some PPE supplies, clay for kilns. Again, that's traditionally been expensive, and we kind of cut that. It's very important to me this year, if I may, Mr. Cornell, it's very important to me this year that we fully fund the supplies and materials because we have cut some of these high cost materials. And, I want to be like a guard dog for that, if I may, and make sure that I would encourage you strongly not to, to keep that amount intact.
I agree. Yeah, these are important items, and I appreciate your passion in defending this item. So
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
may I also add that under supplies and materials, We have to buy materials and supplies for our exploratory classes that have been very popular. And we also have professional development supplies we have to purchase. And we have consumables for the iReady program that we have to replace every year. And those also fall into this category.
Thank you very much, Ms. Danbrook.
Mm.
Any other questions on page 15 on the items? Let's move to 16.
So these three segments, Madam Chair, account for less than 1% of the total budget. We have not included any building improvements. Our plan is to continue to follow the philosophy that we've started in the last several months, and you just work that out of our supplies budget and some contracting to renovate the buildings as we go and fix as we go. I will say that the single largest component there, which is the technology software costs, that is again fundamentally a fixed cost. It's all of the annual licenses, and Dr. Taylor can speak more to that, but it's stuff that you need to purchase an annual license, whether we have 8,000 students or one student. It's a fixed cost to run the district.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may, Mr. Baxter, that's software versus hardware. Now, hardware like Chromebooks and things like that, is that, those were purchases I believe we could make as reimbursable?
Yes,
this year?
yeah, so again, very, very good. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Testa. Yes, the 57309, the category directly above this, technology-related hardware, so Chromebooks, Promethean boards, all of the technology related to distance learning and for learning in the classroom, that we have and continue to plan to continue to use federal funding. Again, it's a non-recurring cost, so we're not building this into a structural deficit. We've made these purchases, and in most cases, especially in the case of the Chromebooks, we've already made the purchases. I don't think the equipment's come in. Again, Mr. Taylor can speak more to that, but we've already made the purchases to get us on a firm foundation for the coming year.
Right. What I would add is, if you look at the historicals that you gave us, that 57309 in fiscal 19 was $750,000, right? And then FY 21 was 452. Building improvements 57202. That's usually $500,000. Those were the areas we would always go to cut, right? Because we could. But essentially, you have taken those because we can get reimbursed, and the federal government will pay for those. We've taken those out, right?
We've either eliminated them altogether, as in the case of 57202, or if it's reimbursable, we've planned to use federal funding for it. Yes.
Right. So the point is that, the area where the school committee like to play, the cut, okay, is just reduced. So, and what's stripped down into that area is bone, right? You're talking curriculum, you're talking consumables for curriculum and things like that. So okay. It's just buttresses the point you were making last time. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Yep.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Mr. Cornell.
Yeah, so I have a few things. The first one, 57313, it's environmental equipment, it's $2,500. What is that being allocated for exactly?
Yeah, so that, and I can, if she's online, would defer to Ms. Ruggieri, but essentially that is equipment to comply with 504 accommodations for employees.
Okay.
So like if we needed an air conditioner for the health and well-being, to make an accommodation for a teacher or something along those lines. That might not be the best example, but
Let's do an
that's
example.
okay.
Yep, that's exactly it. Eyeglasses that get broken, air purifiers, air conditioners, anything like that for an ADA accommodation.
That's very good. We need to take care of our employees. Yeah, the second thing is more of a comment. So on furniture and fixtures, I'm glad that you're including risers in there and these other equipments, because we have a lot of equipment that's falling apart. Like I know of risers that were falling apart that like somebody could get really hurt. So it's good that we're replacing these cafeteria tables, these risers, and we're pretty much in a new age now with education, especially after it's pandemic. Like education's shifting in new directions, so we need to make sure that our furniture reflects that this new age that we're now in the 21st century. So yeah, that's important to fund. And the third thing is a question, what is other dues and fees? 58102, it's $991. What's that being allocated for?
Okay, hold on. 58102, Mr. Cornell is, okay, so that is, let's see, the college board membership for Ms. Wilkinson at Tollgate, Riska, Rhode Island. I'm not exactly sure what Riska is. Science World and Science Olympiad for Vets High School. Things along those lines. So it looks like, associations that, administrators and faculty will join during and then a lot of it is also somewhat athletics as well, fees for the, interscholastic league and those sorts of things.
Okay, yeah, I was just curious. Thank you for that information.
Yes.
Dr. Taylor, you have a question?
Yes, Madam Chair. I'd just like to add a little bit of context to some of those items, just for the knowledge of the school committee as well as the community at large. As Mr. Baxter said, in the technology related hardware, as you can see here in the description, we do keep some Chromebook replacements in here because traditionally non-COVID year, we would still replace a few Chromebooks. So that would be that supplanting question. And to Mr. Baxter's point, fortunately, we were able to make a move on next year's Chromebooks with the ESSER funding and secure those Chromebooks at this year's price, which did save the district about $115,000 by making that move. So I think that that's just an important highlight and really appreciation to Mr. Baxter and Dr. Thornton and yourself of really making that happen. And then technology software, I just think it's important for context because the description, we kind of lump a lot in there. As you know, these are the type of software programs that are the backbone to our operations that support everybody from teachers, parents, and students. And just to highlight a couple of big ticket items, that's like our Blackboard Connect Ed system for $25,000. That's the gateway registration system for all folks registering to the district for $35,000. Is our Microsoft licensing for $60,000. And those are just a couple examples of it's the $50,000 for Go Guardian to protect our student internet access and to be compliant with the laws there. When you add all that together, that's where the big number comes from. But those software programs that we rely on each and every day, they're just expensive for a district with the number of students and faculty and staff that we have. So I just wanted to provide some context for that because I can see the community looking at that number saying, wow, that's big, but our software costs are big.
Yes, we go through it every meeting. Something has to be renewed. Thank you very much, Dr. Taylor. Any other questions on 16?
Question for Dr. Taylor.
Ms. Bacchus?
Dr. Taylor, did we ever receive the Chromebooks that we ordered this year?
Yes, we did. Absolutely. Yes. So I believe Ms. Bonig sent out a picture to your emails too, just so you could see and kind of celebrate with us. But I think a good message to the community, and I'm glad you asked, Ms. Bacchus, because this gives me a chance for a public service announcement. We did receive our 3,600 Chromebooks that we ordered back in September. We were able to secure a very similar better device for the same price. So it actually worked out in our favor. Those did get delivered, our technicians, and kudos to them. We always sing their praises, but really they've been doing a lot of work getting those ready. We'd like to begin deploying those into our grades soon, especially filling the holes of the folks in elementary school, the students that still need devices. Ms. Stanbrook and her team have been putting together a list of where those holes exist. And so we're looking forward to filling those gaps and getting people devices. And then additionally, on top of that, as I mentioned, we were able to order. So we didn't wait till next April and have to be affected by a very large price increase. We were able to get in line, and we've already bought and received 2,500 additional Chromebooks, next year's Chromebooks. Our touchscreen Chromebooks for kindergarten students are slated to be here next week as well. So good news. We've been really, as I've mentioned, every time I've been asked, every week I bug the vendors to make sure that we get them. And we were very successful finally. And I just asked, everybody that's listening and anybody that will tell folks that are not listening, just patience for our technicians. We're getting them done as fast as we can so we can try to get those into the hands of the students before the summer would be my goal for a number of those to go out. So, but that's a great question, Ms. Bacchus. Thank you for that, because it gave me a chance to update everybody.
Well done. Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Bacchus, I suggest you try to find that picture. If I can find it quickly, I'll send it to you. It's pretty impressive. And Dr. Taylor and his staff did an amazing job snagging all these in this climate. They're not easy to get.
Dr. Taylor has a knack for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
He made us proud, let me tell you. So, Mr. Baxter?
So, yeah, so Madam Chair, that's pretty much the end of the line item review. I don't, unless we want to dive into any other categories specifically, but that's all of the UCOA lines. It's the same as that 7-page report. We're at the end of the document.
Yeah, that was much quicker. It's a little different than previous years.
Well, I think part of it is that, again, we've either, as Ms. Danbrook mentioned, we scoured and eliminated any redundancies. We focused on student achievement, and we trimmed and cut as much out of the budget in advance as we could, and what we couldn't and what fit, we shifted to alternate sources of funding.
Anybody have anything to mention? Or-
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, thank you. Excuse me. I think it's self-evident how we balance this budget. I would hope that the committee would agree that asking the city for more money in this particular environment is not good practice. I think what Mr. Baxter and his team have put forward show that we don't need to ask the city for more money. I would caution that, as I mentioned last night, a city can reduce its maintenance of effort for a few reasons, and Mr. Hennish, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but one of the justifications for a city to reduce its maintenance of effort or how much money it gives to its schools is a decline in population.
That's correct.
Right. So, and we have that. We have that in spades. I don't think we're looking at $7 or so million, if I remember correctly. We can look at line items with, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000. Not going to get us to $7 million, and it's not going to change the fact that, as I mentioned last night, we have this number of students that we have to deliver services to. We have this many people that deliver the services, and we have too many people here to service here. It's not pleasant, but it's a reality. I don't think there's a way we cut anything. We've been down this road before, and if we think we can, I think we kid ourselves, and I think that we will be back looking to eliminate things like sports, and we've already been down that road once before, and that wasn't very pleasant because, Mr. Baxter, correct me if I'm wrong, if in that green area, most of which is the places we used to play, like 57202 and technology, that's been essentially removed, but athletics is still in that, right? Because that is a discretionary item.
That is correct. Yes.
And that's going to be a good chunk of what's left in that, of that
It's
$5 or $6 million that
it's a little over $1 million of that. Yes.
all in, right? So, I mean, I'll speak for myself. I wouldn't support that anymore. I don't think so. And I don't think this dynamic is the same as it was 2 years ago when sports was on the table. I think it's I would hope that, I would hope that we would agree that asking the city for more money is not wise. And if we admit to that, then we're very limited in how we can get to a balanced budget. I mean, we could, putting it all in breakage and say put 4 million in breakage is not the way to do it, because it's not going to work. So, I mean, I don't know how much further there is. I mean, it's a reduction in students. We've lost kids. And we have staff that reflects levels before the loss. So I don't know how we do it without doing anything different than what you proposed last night.
Madam Chair, if I may just respond to
Yes,
Mr. Tester.
please.
So I would just want to reiterate that the budget that we're proposing does not impact any of the programs that we run for students. So we're not proposing to cut any programs. These are purely reductions that are through efficiencies. For instance, the leasing of the maintenance vehicles versus purchasing and maintaining what we have, the transportation savings, and then the staff reductions due to declining enrollment. So I just to reiterate, we're not proposing the elimination or the scaling back of any and Ms. Danbrook can chime in here, but of any programs that would affect the students.
Right. I mean, the ultimate in upside down or bizarro world would be to eliminate programs to keep people. It doesn't make sense to me. If it impacts a student that way, and we're going to take it away from the student so we can maintain staff, it's an upside down world.
Hello?
Yes,
Hi, I'm sorry. Superintendent, are we still right-sized?
In terms of schools, Ms. Backus?
Yes.
Yeah, right now, we would not forecast any closure, but if in a lot of our student loss, as you're looking at it, is middle high. But we do have, a few elementaries that are in the, the low 200 range. And if that trend continued, and, in several years' time, we'd have to look at that again at the elementary level. Right now, we're good with 13 elementaries. Middle high, obviously, we have 2 middle schools, 2 high schools. I don't see that changing anytime soon. So yeah, I think right now for the foreseeable future, I wouldn't be seeing any school closure coming to you for consideration.
Thank you.
I'd like to say something. Last year, it was proposed to this committee to cut transportation to balance the budget because we weren't using buses at that time. 4 of my colleagues voted to do it. Now, what happens if we send these slips out and then people come back? I know I've looked into it. 158 people went to homeschooling. What if these people decide at the last minute, because things are somewhat more normal or new normal, and they're comfortable with that, and they say, okay, we're bringing our kids back. So we have to obviously recall a lot of these teachers, and now our budget isn't balanced. What do we do? Dr. Thornton?
It's a pretty typical scenario where you do have, changes in the schedule the following, the summer, if you will. We'll come to you in a normal year, adding a 0.6 English, a full grade 3 teacher at Cedar Hill. That's pretty typical. But the problem is, if right now the numbers you have in the schedules in the schools, in the system, don't jive with our staffing load, if you don't take the opportunity to reduce by June 1st, you've lost the opportunity for that year. It's gone.
No, I understand that, but my question is, I get that whole process. My question is what happens in August if all these people show up? Mr. Baxter?
Yeah, if I may, thank you, Madam Chair. And again, Mr. McCaffrey can also chime in, but the way that the academic team looked at the staffing reductions due to enrollment, they left a substantial amount of margin and flexibility. So by no means are we, as the expression would be, cutting to the bone. That is, as I mentioned yesterday, if we were to follow to oversimplify, if we were to follow the trend, we would actually be reducing about between 70 to 80 FTEs. We're only proposing to reduce 34. And we're still leaving plenty of capacity to, in the schools to accommodate an increase in enrollment. Now that said, that would be like I said, a great problem to have. I would love to have that problem. And I think the way Ms. Danbrook and her team have scheduled and the staff reductions that they're proposing leave plenty of extra capacity in place in case that were to happen.
So out of these 34, what would be the capacity? I'm just curious
Well,
because I
yeah,
don't want to see us do this and then all of a sudden we don't have a balanced budget.
Well, for example, in this model, if you went forward with this, I believe we have 3 elementary sections being reduced. So that's based on numbers right now. But doing that, we have flexibility within the sections that are there. Say there are 20 in a classroom, you can go higher than obviously for class size. You have room to add students back. At the middle level, taking one team off each middle school, you're still on average around 20 students in a class. Once again, there's space in those classes to absorb kids that would come back.
Madam Chair, I'd also say, even if you had 130 kids come back, they're going to come back across grades, right? And you won't
Oh,
know
of
what that-
course, of
so in other
course.
words, I think your point is the wrong way to have done this would have been to have Mr. McCaffrey and Ms. Danbrook last night show the maximum number of reduction and class sizes blown to the contractual max. That's the irresponsible way because it leaves you no wiggle room at all, right? Because you always have kids come back because we've added many teachers over the past couple of years, many staff, whether it's teachers or support staff.
Actually, to that point, Dr. Taylor mentioned it last night, Madam Chair. The possibility was there to take 2 teams from one of the middles and still be within the contractual limits. But the margin was so tight, the team didn't feel that was a wise move because you need more flexibility in scheduling. That's why they pushed back just to the 1.
Okay, I just don't want to see transportation
Madam
debacle
Chair?
like this year go into because over something like this now.
If oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Adams, I was just to respond.
I was still talking.
No, that's fine. I'm sorry.
So I am with you wholeheartedly, and again, I also view this as a view of my personal integrity and responsibility. I'm not one to put forward what I'll call a pseudo budget or a budget that we finagle to make it balanced, so it looks good on paper. And I would be barking again, roof. I'd be barking if we had something like that in here. So no, I think that we have got a very valid budget here, and to accommodate that growth should it occur.
Okay,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
yes, Mr. Adams.
So just in terms of the 34 FTEs that would be cut, are we able to do that? Like, is that like something like because I heard the number that we couldn't exceed was 20.
Actually, I can start and have Mr. Henniges continue. In the contract, we can go above the 20 if we have a substantial decline in student enrollment.
Okay.
And that's what we have here.
And that's based on that mirrors state statute language as well.
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have one more.
Yes, Mr. Testa.
With respect to busing, the assumption is we'd be able to run a full bus too. I mean, when COVID first hit, it was reduced to, was it 25% or 30%?
30%.
Right, so how many kids was that? That was
20 students.
20 students as opposed to like 60 or 66.
66, correct.
So come September, we should be able to fill the bus up again. I don't know how many buses were ever full. The only ones I've seen always had empty seats, but that's another story.
Well,
I
and we are planning to address that this year. Yeah.
Right, I do have a question with that though. So we're gonna get our buses back and everything, which I understand. Are we going to, on a policy, you might not be able to answer this yet because you haven't done it. Are we going to go back and shorten the distance for riders?
So yes, Madam Chair, our full intention, my team's full intention is to come back to you sometime towards the end of this year with recommendations for, to use your word, new normal, to resume a new normal walking distances. And as something that's pragmatic and fits where we're at and to get us back to,
Right.
to get us back.
The change that we just did, which we were forced to do, I'm not saying it was like a happy thing we wanted to do, has put a big struggle in a lot of our families' lives and making it very difficult for especially the little ones
Yes.
to get to school safely, and parents are nervous. So I'm glad to hear that we should be shortening those distance again, so we don't have little kids wandering too far.
And I can assure you, my team has already begun planning. We've got a big new whiteboard map, if you will, a dry erase map of the city, and so one of the good things to come out of this COVID situation is it's allowed us to start with a clean slate, where for years we would take and just modify what we had from one year to the next. We're starting with a clean slate. We've learned an enormous amount. My team, I've got a great new team in transportation. It's a totally refreshed, all new folks. And we're really, again, attacking it with a lot of vigor. And I expect, again, that we will make a proposal to you. I'm hoping by the end of this school year, by the end of June, to say, coming up with walking distances, a different arrival. We're not changing the bell times, but different arrival times and pickup times, and a new way that transportation can work in the city of Warwick, and to provide extra service, if you will, to the to the community. Yes.
Okay, you got me a little excited over
I
that.
am.
I'm seriously excited because I know what this year has done with the bus situation to so many families, and it's just unfortunate, and we owe them better.
Yep,
We
I
really
agree.
owe them better.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm disappointed in where we're at, but I am super excited, and to the point where I annoy my team, and they've asked me to take some time off so that I don't bother them. So
I kind of
on
want to
this.
see that map and see how you guys do it. That's kind of interesting. Thank you.
Sure thing. Absolutely.
Madam Chair,
That's right. Yes, Mr. Adams.
just to piggyback off of what how you started with the social distancing and on transportation, are we anticipating that there won't be as strict, if any, social distancing guidelines come September? Because I know, like, right now we can't exceed more than 17 students to adults. Are we expecting that to not be an obstacle come next school year?
Talking, Mr. Adams, classrooms?
Yes.
Yeah, our expectation right now is to model a regular classroom setting in the fall. We've got every indication to believe that is where we're going.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Comments?
If I may, just to reiterate, I strongly urge the school committee members to consider and adopt this as the superintendent recommended budget. That just as I think that the administration, the academic team and my team have, really, like I said, put our heads together in a different and creative way to come up with an effective budget that's got the students' needs in mind. And I can just appeal to you, please, to consider adopting the budget. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Baxter. I just want to say this has been a refreshing change. And I know that everyone worked hard. And hopefully we can work this all out.
Thank you. I
want to thank all involved, all of our administration. I know it's been a crazy year, and now it's with the budget, it's even worse. I know a lot of you have been working night and day, and I just want to say thank you to you all for working hard to put this all together for us and make it an easier experience this year. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Madam Chair, we have a meeting next week, right?
Yes.
And that'll be the meeting where we decide what we're going to do on a budget.
Correct.
But that we're going to structure that one so kind of like the Frank Locker.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I actually am
That's
going to
fine.
talk to
No
Mr.
public
Ferrucci about that
input.
tomorrow. And hopefully we'll get that on also.
So the public input would be first, and then
Correct. Yeah,
we would decide what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? We're all good? Wow, I'd like to know who won the bet. I think everybody lost. So with that being said.
I did.
Huh? You won?
No, I said I lost.
I would have lost against myself too. So, future meetings, there's this, as Mr. Testa just brought up, there's a special school committee meeting on Tuesday, April 20th, and that will be covering the budget and the building of a new schools. So I hope the community, pays attention, joins in with us. We want the community to be here, and if I can get a motion to adjourn,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wow.